Welcome back to Up North at 4. We are joined by Joe Handrick. He's a former member of the Wisconsin Assembly from Minocqua. Joe, how's it going?
It's going great. Great to be here.
Election day, great day for the United States, something that we're lucky to have. You've been doing a lot of analysis on early voting numbers. What have you learned from that?
Well, the first thing I learned is that we should never read too much into the early vote data, because in Wisconsin, voters do not register by party. So simply because early voting is up in one area or down in another does not necessarily indicate good news for Republicans or good news for Democrats. But what we have seen is across the state, the early in-person voting is way up over 2020. Mail voting through the U.S. mail is way down, and that's to be expected because 2020 was during the pandemic and a lot of people voted by mail. And the real difference from 2020 that we're seeing this time around is it appears that Republicans, for the first time, are actually embracing early voting and have been showing up earlier than they have in past cycles. What we don't know is, are those the same people that would have voted on Election Day anyways, or are some of these new voters, and in which case, if that's true, that would be good news, of course, for Donald Trump.
But like you said, maybe the analysis should stop at there is more. So let's leave it at that.
That's
like
right.
You kind of said.
That's the best way to look at it, is because nobody knows. And even in states where there's voter registration by party, you don't actually know, because there's a lot of people, in Pennsylvania, there's a lot of people who are still registered as Democrats, but they've been voting for Republican for 10 years.
Sure.
And there's other people, particularly in suburbs, who are registered as Republicans, but they've been voting Democrat for 10 years. So I always caution people, don't read too much into the early voting. The fact that the public seems really engaged and turnout's going to be really high, that's good news for the United States as a whole.
So talking about suburbs, we're looking at Wisconsin now. We got Tammy Baldwin, Eric Hovde, and of course the presidential matchup. What are you going to be looking for tonight in terms of results from perhaps those wow counties?
The first thing I look at is actually turnout compared to 2020. We know that in 2020, Donald Trump lost Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. And I don't know about you, but I don't know very many people who've changed their mind since 2020 about Trump or the Democratic candidate. So what that tells me is that Trump wants an increase in turnout because he needs to change that dynamic and get new voters out. So the first thing I'm going to be looking at is, are those Republican counties seeing higher turnout than 2020? And how is Dane and Milwaukee County, those are the two big blue Democratic counties, how are they doing in terms of turnout? If turnout in Milwaukee is down and turnout in Waukesha is up, that's good news for Trump. The reverse is obviously true. If Dane County is way up, but the Republican suburbs are way down, that's very good news for Kamala Harris. So first I look at turnout, then I start looking at those key counties. I look at the big blue counties, Dane and Milwaukee, and I look at the big three Republican counties. We call them the WOW counties, Waukesha, Ozaukee, Washington. And then there's a third set we look at, and this is the real key. We call them the BOW counties, Brown, Outagamie, and Winnebago. Those are the big swing counties. They're not deep red, they're not deep blue. They're just marginally red. But a Republican needs to win big margins in those counties as well to offset Dane and Milwaukee. And that's one of the parts of the state that really swings. In a Democratic election, you can even see those counties go blue, and in a big Republican year, they go very red.
Thanks so much, Joe, for stopping by.
You bet.
We'll be right back on Up North at 4.